This is Boomer Life on CIL 650.
And we're talking about home, a retirement living home. And we don't want to use developments or buildings because it's so much more than that. Opal by Element is an aging in place community. It's about people being together and families being together. Canby and King Edward. Don Ho is the president. He joins us along with his daughter Candy, who is the vice president of marketing and corporate relations. And we had a guest on a little bit earlier named Dr. John Gilbert.
Yes.
Who's Dr. John Gilbert?
He is my mentor from UBC, my life mentor, my kind of godfather, my son's grandfather, and he's our independent director of Element. And the reason is actually perfectly, he said, that is so much more than just development buildings. It's about people. So he has an Order of Canada for his contribution to healthcare professionals training interprofessionally to bring together collaborative teamwork and a spirit of really working together to provide better, to improve communication and all that. And how I met him was when I was in university on track for medicine. I was president of Health Sciences Student Association, which was across 13 health and human faculties. And he had just formed the College of Health Disciplines at UBC. So that's how he was my leadership mentor, I would say. And we bring him on because we want to train management as well as frontline staff better in a collaborative spirit, so he would be able to help us develop training programs. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is Element Lifestyle Board member, Dr. John Gilbert.
What was that like?
Well, it's Canada's highest civilian order.
Yeah.
And recognition for work that you've done locally, federally, internationally. It's a huge honor. It doesn't go to everybody.
No.
And the award ceremony itself is spectacular because the Governor General is, of course, the person who gives you the award. And it's held in Governor General's mansion.
Rideau Hall, yeah.
Rideau Hall.
Yeah.
It's just a very, very special occasion. And as you know, I'm an immigrant. I came to Canada when I was 25 and a half. And I've always looked back at that decision as the best decision of my life.
And
well, I grew up I was born in the war in England, and England is still very class-ridden. Well, I don't care what anybody says.
My family's all from there, and I talk to them about it.
Yeah.
But you have to go to the school, and it's crazy.
And have the right accent and so on. And so I didn't come from that strata of society, but I did have a very good education. But then I went to the United States as a Fulbright scholar, and I discovered that people actually took a shower every day because the water was hot, which was great. There were these marvelous places called supermarkets where you could buy almost anything, whereas in England, of course, we'd come off rationing like barely 10 years before, and food was still scarce. There was no concern about the way you spoke. Nobody asked you, which school you went to, et cetera. So when I finished my Fulbright, the requirements of Senator Fulbright about that was that you would go back to your country for 2 years because the idea was then you would build in your own country the kind of principles of liberalism and democracy that existed in the United States. I'm not so sure at the moment. But I didn't really want to go back to England. I discovered, as I said, hot water and wonderful food and the friendliness of people. And somebody told me there was a job at UBC, and I applied and I was accepted. And frankly, looking back, it's been amazing. It's been an amazing country for me. It gave me all the opportunities I would never, ever have had in the United Kingdom.
Oh, that's great. I think you represent the Order of Canada well then. It's a real honor to have. So what part of your work career do you think represented or really sort of propelled you to get that order? What is it that you've got such a long resume and history, but what do you think it is that you have bottled and provided for people that really has put you in the forefront of what you do? Well,
I had really two parts to my academic career. The first was we had a dean of medicine at UBC. My appointment was in medicine, although I'm not a physician.
Right.
I understand that. I'm a PhD. And so my first role was to build a program for audiologists and speech-language pathologists at UBC because there had been a Royal Commission in the early 60s. We always have Royal Commissions, right, to figure out what we're going to do with the healthcare system. And that Royal Commission had said there should be a school at UBC, Toronto, and McGill, and Dalhousie. So my dean at that time, I was very young, said, well, you're going to do it. And so I worked, and we built a really, really good program, which now, I mean, you know, is the only one in British Columbia, and we train audiologists, speech-language pathologists for all those people with speech and hearing problems, speech-language and hearing problems. But then at a particular stage in my career, when I had stepped down from that role after about 20 years, and I had also run the School of Rehab Sciences, which is OT and PT, I was asked if I would take on a different job in the university, which was more global in terms of looking at all of the health human service programs and trying to figure out, you know, what we should do with them. And I became very interested then in health education policy and then health policy, and why it was that we have so much difficulty building teamwork within the healthcare system because everybody's trained in silos, you know. So we got medicine here and pharmacy and nursing, and they're all in their own buildings and they have their own curricula. And it was very clear that the effects of this on the healthcare system are quite profound because...
And expensive, too.
And expensive, because they seldom know anything about each other's work. So I got really interested in that. And so the second part of my career was about building this approach to education, interprofessional education, for collaborative, patient-centered practice. So we've become... it's very interesting. We've become very, very interested in collaborative teamwork. In fact, the United Nations Commission, which reported just before Christmas, remember Holland and Zuma were the co-chairs of that very, very important commission. And it actually has interprofessional education for collaborative practice twice because I helped to write it.
Oh, good for you.
That particular part. And then around workforce, because we've been looking at the shortage of people in the healthcare fields, around the world, it was clear that we had to approach workforce in a different way, that you just couldn't go on training more of the X's and the Y's and the Z's because you just got the same results. So
you just have more X's, Y's, and Z's.
That's right. And you don't have this interprofessional collaborative practice.
So you have to take all those letters and make a word.
That's right.
That
you
all
try
works
to.
together, right?
Yeah. You try to. So that's... So that was the second part. So the Order of Canada was recognition of both of those things, both of those parts of my career. And they've, you know, and that second part of my career isn't over. I still work every day. And,
Well, I can see how with your background and the way you've tried to bring different parts of healthcare together to work collaboratively works well with what you're trying to achieve at Element, which is that you're trying to get this sort of cohesive way of living. It's not just the healthcare; it's a lifestyle. So Opal at Element is explained to give us the 30,000 foot because you know Dr. Gilbert flies a lot. The 30,000 foot look at what you're trying to do, building off what Dr. Gilbert just mentioned. So you're building everything together.
Yeah, and like Dr. Gilbert thinks about things in a very global and conceptual way and tries to make a difference and go beyond status quo. And it might take a generation, 30 years, 40 years. It's the same thing that we're trying to achieve as well. And that is to revolutionize the perception and experience of retirement and aging that actually John perfectly embodies. That, you know, he's retired in his idea that he doesn't have to work, but he does work every day by choice because he feels an incredible sense of purpose that he's making a difference in this world, and he's so good at what he does, and it just flows from him. But he's very much active, and I don't even know how to say how important his contributions are.
I would say also that you talked about this collaborative idea within the medicine that people, so you have to have pharmacy and nursing and the doctors all working together. Well, that's what you're trying to do at Element. You're trying to bring elders, or we also call them seniors, and younger members of society together, along with maybe healthcare and assisted living. So you're pulling all that together.
Well, we do hospitality and real estate as well as care care, nursing care, and then we'll also have medical director that will prevent unnecessary hospital transfers. We will have OTs and PTs and dietary counselors and all sorts of therapists coming in. So very important that there is that collaborative piece. And when I was in UBC and on HSSA, that was what it was about, and it really inspired me that of course there needs to be communication to prevent lots of mistakes, but also to improve the quality of care, integrate each other's work.
Now, Dr. Gilbert, Candy's been on many times talking about how we want to have this intergenerational place to be and to exist and to continue your life, not just after retirement. What do you feel how important that is to have a different in our society? We kind of shutter older people away and let them live their life on their own. And what Candy's trying to do is to bring other elements into it to help keep them energized as they get a little older.
Well, there are two major ideas about how to handle that kind of mature elder years of your life. One is to ensure that should you need care, then that care is provided, and the government provides some of those facilities. And the other is to say, well, at least on the government side, provincial government side, that's a really expensive way to take care of elder people. And maybe if they have a home and we can provide service in the home, providing service in the home is less expensive and so on. But that's not the idea of Opal. Opal is about saying, I no longer want to be in that house because, take me and my wife, we have two people in a very large house. We want to be in a place where if we do, in fact, begin to deteriorate, our health begins to deteriorate, we can stay there. We can stay there right to the end. And it doesn't matter whether it's one of us or both of us. Opal is saying, we're not going to boot you out. And there are many, many high-level, very expensive senior residences, retirement residences that say, sorry, you've got dementia, you got to go somewhere else. And that is very hard, both for the individual involved. Supposing that you're supposing that you're 85 or 90, and then somebody says, well, you can't live here anymore. And it's very hard on the family because then you have to make these big adjustments. So Opal's notion of this continuum where you can go in fit, healthy, because we don't talk about it as a medical facility. It's called. It's about good health. You can go in. The lifestyle is very nice. We're going to have a daycare. There's a garden, etc. And then as you progress and you get a little more fragile, then the care is still there. And then when one of you goes, you don't have to leave. And that's really unique.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.